Untold millions, that's right, untold millions have not been paid to drivers by the Instacart app. And we're going to talk about it on this segment of the Gig Geezer. This is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, or if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, hey, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. That's right. In the teaser, I mentioned untold millions that have not been paid to drivers by Instacart. And my guess has been just over the last 2+ years, going back to say March 2020. Now that's about the same time, that coincides with about the time that I've been active on the Instacart app as well. I came on right as the lockdowns began with the COVID situation. And over this time, I have completed just south of 1,500 orders on the app. But it is my estimate, just for me personally, and it's a very conservative estimate, that I have been shorted of at least $1,000 over the course of at least 100 orders. Now, just to give you some numbers about Instacart. Instacart has been in existence since 2012. Instacart's current valuation is $24 billion. That is down from $39 billion from 2021, but it's still up from its valuation of $13.7 billion in 2020 and $7.6 billion in 2018. Now, there are an estimated 10 million customers on the Instacart app. There's also an estimated anywhere between 500,000 and 750,000 drivers that are on the app. And based on the experience, based on my experience and probably thousands of others, it is safe to say that at least 50,000 drivers have experienced something similar to what I've experienced. And if you multiply 50,000 by at least 1,000, we're talking $50 million that could be said that Instacart has shorted drivers. And depending on who you're talking to, for the sake of this conversation, it is not any stretch of the imagination. It could be a very much a realistic number. And that would be a number that would be very comparable to the settlement that Amazon paid out for its shorting drivers of tips that were due to them, in which Amazon subsidized base pay for Amazon for its whole food deliveries with customer tips. And it became a $60+ million settlement with the Federal Trade Commission. And that was in November of 2021. Now, these figures, at least the $50 million that I'm using as the basis of my argument, is based on Instacart not paying drivers heavy pay and distance or proximity pay. And I'll get further into that. Now, earlier today, Sunday, October 16, 2022, I'd had enough with Instacart, and I filed a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. And as you see here on the screen, that is a screenshot of the file number that was assigned to the complaint that I filed through the Federal Trade Commission. Now, I believe that if other drivers began filing similar complaints, and it's not so much as this fad thing, but I mean but if drivers actually have valid reasons, as I have, if enough drivers began filing complaints to the Federal Trade Commission, and if media outlets begin paying attention to what is being said on social media and perhaps other places eventually, it will force Instacart to reconcile with drivers monies that it failed to pay us. Now, I said that I base my numbers on personal experience of at least 100 orders out of nearly 1,500. And the amount is based on $1,000 at a minimum. I will share with you multiple experiences in 2022 that somewhat gives you some context or background as to why I filed this complaint. Now, earlier this spring, I complained to Instacart about its absurdity of batching orders together, in which the miles that drivers would have to drive to complete the delivery of these orders was just outrageous. And Instacart responded a couple of days later by adding an adjustment to my pay, and it was called a proximity bump. And that was for $5. I didn't think anything of it, nothing at all. I just went on. Another $5. Yeah, Instacart. Well, a few weeks ago, on October 1st, while completing an order, a customer messaged me through the app and asked me, do the drivers actually get the $5 distance pay that customers are charged? I responded to the customer, and by the way, that this interaction is on this segment of the Gig Geezer, and this is the thumbnail. My response was, I've never seen such thing in my more than 1,400 completed orders on the app. And the customer's reply was she was not surprised, and that's why she tips the way she does. And I'm paraphrasing that interaction. Now, I went ahead, and again, this is the thumbnail. This is a segment. This is a segment of the Gig Geezer. This is a segment of the Gig Geezer in which I described it as Instacart keeping monies from drivers. In fact, I described it as Instacart finding inventive ways of keeping money for drivers. And the other thing that I mentioned in that segment was about heavy pay, but I didn't go any further. Well, this past Friday, October 14th, 2022, I completed an order that offered $56 and change. The total miles on that order was $45. And right away, I know among drivers, they probably are questioning me, why did I even accept that order? Well, to make a long story short, I had a very good first half of my first half hustle, in which I made just south of $165 on 3 catering orders, and they took me just 2.5 hours. So I had, for lack of better words, using some bowling terminology, some looseness in my swing. And so I just called myself running up the numbers by taking an order that would actually, if under most circumstances, an order like that would have been taken up by a driver in my market, Columbia, South Carolina market, faster than you can blink your eyes. So it just so happened that I got that order. Now, 2 of the 3 drop-off locations were well off into Lexington County, which explains for the 45 miles. But I, having lived in Lexington County and having completed many deliveries in these 2 areas of Lexington County, I knew that it would not take me 45 miles to complete this order. But we have to go based on Instacart's estimation of miles. And if you see here, upon completing the order, it says that I made $56 and change. The total base pay was $30 and change, and the total amount of tips were $26. Well, 45 point plus miles of that is supposedly based on mileage which Instacart pays the driver as a part of their base pay for the order. The typical base pay for a driver, if there is no tip by the customer, is $7. And so if it's a $7 order, it's usually the mileage and or some type of additional money that Instacart put in to make that $7. But if the mileage exceeds it, then it's the mileage that accounts for the $7. Well, in this particular case, I I knew that the order was going to have heavy pay, but when I looked at the um the pay screen, I didn't see anything that said heavy pay. And I certainly didn't see anything about distance pay. And so I tried to call Instacart about this because you can in the midst of a live delivery, but I had connection issues. And so I was in conversation with someone on the app in the messaging in the chat room, and this person apparently agreed with my argument that I should get an additional $15 on the order. And then the representative, as you can see here, said, I have successfully added the amount. And once you refresh the screen, you will see the additional $15. So that order went from $56 to $71. And I was okay with that. But I got to thinking, this is just one example out of countless examples in which drivers have been shorted or have failed to bring to Instacart's attention about not being paid for heavy pay or mileage, and or for the additional miles. And so when I woke up this morning, I decided that I am going to file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. And my hope is that others who check out this segment of the Gig Geezer will also file complaints through the Federal Trade Commission as well. And if there's enough complaints, the Federal Trade Commission will pay attention and begin to investigate these complaints. And if there's the right media attention, it will force Instacart to answer for its failure to calculate, its omission, or just outright scamming or stealing from drivers. That's the goal of this, because this has gone too far. Now, the third example of this, or the final example of this, occurred today, Sunday, October 16. I accepted an order that offered $41. It also was a triple stacked order. The total miles on it, according to Instacart, was 31 point plus miles. And it also mentioned about heavy pay. Now, upon dropping off to the third customer, I got on the chat feature of the app and tried to point out to the representative that I should, based on previous experience, should see an adjustment in my pay of $15. Well, to make a long story short, I did not even get half of that. I got $7 out of the 15 that I requested. I went back and forth with this representative and a supervisor for about an hour. So I lost an hour out of my first half hustle going back and forth with these people. And you can see here some of the interaction that I had, in which I said, hey, look, I don't believe that I have to argue this as if it were a court case over $15. And quite honestly, $15 is not going to wreck my day. It's not going to wreck my week. It's not going to wreck my month. It's not going to wreck my year. But it's the principle of it that Instacart is not paying what it should. What I'm doing at this point is I want to show you, with everything broken up and spread out, so that you can see just where Instacart, at least in my opinion, has miscalculated, omitted, or just simply scammed us, cheated us out of money that we should have earned. And that now I've given you four examples of orders in which I believe that Instacart did not pay me as I should have gotten. And I believe one of the problems is that Instacart groups all the batch earnings into one amount when that should be broken up. Think about this. When you're in business and you are given a pay statement, what you earn is broken up as necessary for clarity's sake and really for accounting sake. And this is something that Instacart isn't doing. So what happens is that numbers can be contorted and twisted to anyone's advantage. I can contort and twist these numbers to my advantage as well, but that's not the point, because this should help everyone. The last order that the order that you have here on the screen now is the one in which I accepted the initial offer amount was $41 and change. And as you see on the right, there's batch summary, and this is what it was supposedly what I got paid, $40.90. And then the next tier is the batch earnings, supposedly of $25.07. And according to Instacart, they're saying that the heavy pay is included and the delivery distance is included, but the delivery distance is based on the 31 miles times 60 cents, which is like $18.70. So we rounded it up to $19. If you look at those numbers right there, $19, 25.7, where then is the heavy order pay? That's what I'm getting at. Where is then the heavy order pay? That's not accounted for, nor is the proximity bump for the time of the for the time it's going to take more than 30 minutes to one of the drop-off locations. And so if you look to your left, this is the way I think it should be done for clarity's sake. And I would venture to think that the Federal Trade Commission would probably propose something like this to Instacart as well, so that there be no confusion over things. So you've got heavy pay right there, $10. Proximity bump, $5. Mileage, which is the $31 and change, we rounded it up to 19. So batch pay or driver base is $34 on this order. And then you add the tips. Now, that's subjective there. And the tips aren't that great on this order, particularly order C, because that's the one that went out to Camden. They tipped only $2. But you kind of know when you do certain orders that you're probably going to have one or two that are grouped together with one that supposedly pays better. That's the way all these app companies do. They'll group together orders that are horrible with one that seems okay or really good, one or the other. And so this order should have paid, at least based on my count then, $49.83. Now, the one in which I said, the one that I noted whereby the offer amount was $56 and change, and then the added was $15, that one was right. That one was right, at least in my opinion. Not so much because it favored me, but that is correct. That is the way it should have been done. So I didn't show a breakdown of that one. But then I'm going to give you another example, the one that really started all this, the one from October 1st. You see here that the total amount paid was $37.48. That was actually the amount that was offered. Batch earnings is showing $17.48, and it says includes delivery distance of what? Okay. So then there are tips, which is what the customer says she tipped more. She actually tipped generously. And I would venture to say, so in fact, I thanked her for her generosity and consideration in our chat, in our text exchange through the app. Now, based on what at least in my opinion, what I think it should be, you put in clear as day, proximity bump, $5. Then mileage is $14.58. And so the driver base pay should be $19.58 on this particular order. And then the total payment with the $20 tip should be $39.58. So in one example, cheated out of $9. In another example, $2. And in the third example, $15. So that's $26, $27 that I either had to go back to them to try to recoup, or you can arguably say was not recouped. But for the sake of argument, $27. Now, you multiply that, just $27 times $50,000 just on that small example alone. And it's arguably, you can say that at least 50,000 drivers who have been on the Instacart app since March 2020 have been shorted. 50,000 by $27, that's over $1 million. $1 million, $1.35 million alone. So I believe I have a pretty valid argument. But just on that, I believe I have a valid argument alone with how Instacart has either miscalculated, omitted, or just simply cheated us out of monies that we should have been paid. Now, as I pointed out to the person in this particular example, the base pay is $25. The base pay is $25. The total tips are $16 and change. The mileage that is a part of the base pay according to Instacart is 31 times 60 cents, and that rounds up to $19. So there's this discrepancy here. And so my question is, where is the heavy pay and where is the distance pay? And so all they can tell me was that the heavy pay was calculated into the base pay, and that came out to $12.94. So it was a combination of miles plus the $10. But where is it that I see this $10? There's no type of, when you get, here's the thing, if you're an independent contractor and you're paid for services, there should be this detailed invoice for what you should be paid for, or at least what is agreed upon. There's no detail of the $10 that I saw. There's no detail of the $5 that I should have got for the distance. And so they're telling me, well, the most we can do is $7. And that's based on, well, we figured that, okay, we'll give you the $7 because the heavy pay plus mileage came out to $12 and change. And so the base was, the total miles should have been about 19. So the difference thereof, we figure, is $7. That don't make any sense if the total base pay is $25. There's still this discrepancy. So Instacart basically says, at least with these two people, no, we're not going to pay that. We're not going to pay that. So I'm pretty sure that if the Federal Trade Commission were to investigate this, Instacart would have to come up with a better solution. Instacart would have to come up with a better answer than what it gave me today. And if the right people began to inquire about the discrepancies that thousands of other drivers are probably beginning to ask as well, Instacart was going to have to come up with a very clear answer that also makes sense. So my goal is that a lot of people do share the content in this segment of the Gig Geezer. A lot of people begin to comment in the section below. But also, if you will, file your complaint with the Federal Trade Commission as well. Now, I've also provided in the first comment below a link to the Federal Trade Commission where you can file your complaint. But I've also included in the description of this segment of the Gig Geezer a link to the Federal Trade Commission as well. And it's also here on the screen. You got to help out as well in the process. One person can't do it. It takes a lot of people to get companies like Instacart to rectify what it's been doing all along. And with that, this is another segment of the Gig Geezer. I'm Inwood Lane, and as always, may your hustle and may your grind continue.